everyone, and I thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. You know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten you. I want to inspire you. I want to empower you to become your best self. The scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today, we want to get you fired up about our guest, Michael Coccari, and his book entitled Cancer Fight. Now, you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Good morning, Michael. Thank you so much for spending time with me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here with you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. I definitely want to talk to you about your book as being a breast cancer survivor myself. This is something that, of course, I wanted to be able to share with my listeners. Now, before we do that, though, I would love to introduce you to, or allow you to introduce yourself to the listeners that perhaps are unfamiliar with you or unfamiliar with your work. So the question I ask everyone who's on, and that is, what makes you you? What do you believe has contributed to your life to make you the person that you are today?
Wow, powerful question. I am a very blessed individual in that I have had powerful mentors in my life, powerful family members, powerful friends and coworkers. And they have all had a huge impact on helping me develop a life philosophy, a set of values, a set of principles, and a philosophy of how I want to live. The person who had the greatest impact on my life was my wife, Darlene, who is the subject of my book.
Now, you have had the privilege, you are a teacher, but you have the privilege of not only teaching in the San Joaquin Valley in California, but also in Osaka, Japan. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. I was in my early 20s. I had graduated from college. I had worked for about 3 years in civil service. I worked for a city in city government as an employment counselor, and I was looking for a change. I wanted an opportunity to travel, and I knew that I always wanted to teach at some point in my life. And so I did some research, and I was lucky enough to be hired by a private school in Osaka to teach English. And so I took advantage of that opportunity. It was a life-changing experience. I learned so much about myself, but more importantly about other people, about another culture, and it was eye-opening in so many ways. And I had an opportunity to teach people of all ages, not only students, but also members of the business community in Japan who needed English for their business. And so it was just a fantastic opportunity that changed my life in many different ways and inspired me to want to return to the U.S. And then continue my teaching career in the public school system.
Absolutely. It sounds so exciting. I can understand that. That's amazing. I love it. Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do, or did you find that it was just the next thing along your life path?
I worked as an English teacher. I majored in English in college, and so literature has always been very important to me, very close to my heart. And so it was having an opportunity to teach literature was a phenomenal experience. And I've always been interested in writing for most of my life, from starting as a teenager through most of my adulthood. I wrote poetry. That is something close to my heart. I enjoy teaching it. And so I have spent a lot of time writing poetry. And then I've also done some fiction writing and some nonfiction writing. And so my own personal writing practice and writing efforts went along with my career as a teacher of English. And it helped me, teaching literature helped me become a better writer. Writing helped me become a better teacher of literature.
I can definitely follow that thought. Now, the title of your book, usually it's when we're dealing with illness, when we're dealing with mental health or disease, it tends to be a personal experience that we're sharing in some form or fashion. The experience itself, or the wisdom that we've been able to gather from having gone through the fire of that experience. Can you tell us about choosing the title of your book? Now, I know that I referenced the short title, Cancer Fight, but can you tell us the full title, and how did you choose those words to be the title?
Yes. So the full title is Cancer Fight, My Wife's Faithful, Fearless Battle Against Breast Cancer. I chose that title very carefully because I wanted to convey the idea that her battle was not just a physical battle against this terrible disease. It was a mental battle. It was an emotional battle. It was a spiritual battle. And so I wanted to try to convey that. And I hope that one of the messages of the book is the idea that while cancer devastated my wife's body, it did not devastate her spirit and her soul and her love of life. And so I was trying to convey that it was a battle on many different fronts, and while physically cancer ultimately prevailed, it was not able to defeat her spirit. It was not able to diminish or defeat her belief in God. It was not able to diminish or defeat her love of life, her love of people, her gratitude that she had 50 years on this earth, her faith in God, her faith in people, faith in humanity. Cancer was not able to affect that at all in any negative way. So ultimately, I think that she prevailed in her battle. Physically, yes, cancer took its toll, but it was not able to hurt her in those other ways. And that's what I attempt to convey in the book.
Oh, I love your answer so much, Michael, and thank you for saying it in just those words. I believe that our loved ones can definitely live on in everything that they do. That their physical presence may not still be with us, but in all that they've shared with us and all that they do to enrich our lives, they're never truly forgotten or not with us, because they were just amazing people while they were with us. Thank you so much for that beautiful explanation. Now, when learning to live with the loss of a loved one, how do you avoid being overwhelmed with sadness? I mean, we all know that there are stages of grief, but when you're going through it, how do you keep from just letting it get to you, overwhelmingly so?
I will first say that 5 years later, the sense of loss is every bit as great as it was initially. 5 years later, the sense of devastation and sadness is every bit as great. But my answer to your question is, I have to try to honor what my wife went through and the way that she went through it by not allowing myself to be overwhelmed by sadness or by depression or despondency. That would disappoint her greatly. That would fail to honor the fight that she waged, the way that she lived her life. One of the other things that I try to say in the book is that as she fought cancer, she did it in a selfless way. What I mean by that is she did everything in her power to prepare our sons for the eventuality of having to live most of their lives without their mother. She was very dedicated to doing that. And so when I say she was selfless, that's what I mean. She tried to prepare me. She was so intent on taking care of other people while she was fighting the disease. So in order for me to try to honor what she went through, I can't allow myself to become overwhelmed by the sadness. That would dishonor what she tried to do and how she tried to prepare her children and myself and other family members for what she knew eventually was going to happen. And so I just try to honor her every day. I say that in the book. I'm very dedicated to doing that. I owe that to her. If she was able to display so much courage fighting this disease, I need to try to display the same kind of courage, although she was so much stronger than I will ever be, but I need to try to honor her in that way.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And yes, I see what you mean. What a beautiful, sounds like she had just such a beautiful heart, that she really did want for you guys to be okay. And that says a lot about the woman that she was, but the person that she still is, because she still lives on and with you guys, even though, again, not physically, but she's still with you. I know that people have a hard time understanding that, but I talk that way about my father, who passed away. And it's like, of course, I know he's not here, but his lessons, still, when something comes up, I still hear him, in a way giving that instruction or giving that encouragement. And you just know that they're still with us in a very beautiful way. So
Absolutely.
I understand exactly what you mean. That says a lot about her. And I'm so glad that you had her in your life, and that you're able to tell your boys that their mom was an awesome woman. So I'm so glad that happened for you as well. Well, Michael, it is time for us to go to break. But before we do, can you please remind everyone, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And how do we stay in contact with you?
Yes, thank you so much. So the title of the book is Cancer Fight, My Wife's Faithful, Fearless Battle Against Breast Cancer. The book is available on Amazon. The publisher is Ex Libris, so exlibris.com is also a place where you can get the book. I am on Facebook. I do have a Facebook page with information about the book.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. Now, Michael, my next question for you is, about your process. So many times when authors are writing, some have said it's an experience for them, that it's more than just, pen and paper or typing on your laptop like it would be if you were, doing a journal entry, but that it's a real experience. Did you find that as you were writing this book that it helped you to deal with the loss, that it perhaps lessened the grief, at least just for a time?
Yes. I would say that it was, to use the cliche, a bit of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it did help me through the process, through the grieving process, absolutely. It deepened my understanding. It allowed me to relive things and with an appreciation and with a deeper understanding. At the same time, by going through that process, in and of itself, it was also difficult. It was also traumatic because I was doing a lot of reliving. So it was both. It helped in a way. It also made it difficult. There were some days when it was just too difficult, to deal with it, and I would have to set it aside and then come back at another time. But it was a very valuable process. I knew that I had to do it. Again, I felt that I owed it to Darlene, to what she went through, and so I was very committed to it.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Now, you speak so lovingly about your wife and your book, Cancer Fight. What do you believe are some of her endearing qualities, if you will, that you believe may be able to help others that are going through an experience that may be similar?
Oh, so the first thing that I would say is that she was a very selfless person. She too was a teacher through much of her life. So she was a very giving person. She was very interested in other people's lives, in meeting people, in getting to know them, in understanding them. So she continued to do that as she was dealing with the disease. So the first quality that I would say is her selflessness. The second quality is just her courage. Her first oncologist told her that she needed to be tough through this process, and he also directed that comment to me. He said, "You need to be tough. You need to bring all of your strength to this fight." And she did exactly that. So the second quality is just her courage. The third thing I would say is that she truly loved life. I hope that doesn't sound too much like a cliche. She was an extraordinarily happy person. She had just a very deep appreciation for life. She felt blessed. Every day she got up with a very positive attitude, and that carried through her experience as she was dealing with the disease. She just felt very grateful, and she felt that it was important every day to just thank God for the blessing of life. And she never lost that. And I have learned so much from that. I guess the last thing I would say is she maintained her sense of humor. She never lost that. Even when she realized that things ultimately were not going to turn out the way that we wanted them to, she still maintained her sense of humor, her willingness to be silly, to make fun of herself, to laugh, to enjoy life, to have that appreciation. So those are the main things that I would mention. And my role in this was that of a caregiver. And even though she was the patient, she taught me what being a caregiver means. I think she was a caregiver all her life, in that whenever she met someone or whenever she was engaged in a conversation with someone, she cared about them. She demonstrated that caring that she had for the other person. Very empathetic, very compassionate, and she taught me how to be a caregiver. Even though she was the patient, she was able to help me understand that just in regular life, even when you're not facing such a huge challenge, we're all caregivers, or we should be, every day in every conversation, with another person. That's what it means to be a person. That we have to find that sense of humanity, and she taught me how to do that.
I love it. I love it. Now, the next question that I'm going to ask you is something that I know that I have spoken about many times myself when I found out that I had breast cancer, and that is when you hear those words, you have cancer. How did your wife respond? How did you respond as a husband, as a family? And what do you think are, flip side of that coin, what do you think are some things that that family support team can do to help keep each other encouraged in those initial moments of finding out about the diagnosis?
Yes. Great question. It was such a shock. She was expecting to be told, you have a cyst, no big deal, here's how we're going to handle it, and you'll be able to get on with your life. So those words were truly shocking. The first thing I would say is take one step at a time. Don't try to do everything that is necessary to do in one day, because that's impossible. So try to just take one concrete action at a time. The second thing is to stay together. I remember being in that exam room when her oncologist came in and he gave her that message, and we just looked at each other for a moment, unable to speak, fighting back tears, fighting back that sense of being overwhelmed. And I think what we were communicating non-verbally was, okay, we are together, we're going to stay together, we're going to fight this together as much as possible, and we're going to do everything that is necessary, and we're not going to surrender, we're not going to be afraid to do what's necessary. We're going to just face it head on, take it head on, and do that together. The next thing I would say is to ask lots of questions, and we always did that. And I feel blessed that we had doctors who just gave us all the time that we needed to pose our questions. I would also say it's important not to play the what if game. What if this happens? What if this treatment doesn't work? What if this surgery doesn't get all of the cancer? It's very dangerous to play that what if game, because there's no way to answer it, and then that leads to negative thoughts, dark thoughts, and obviously it's important to avoid that. I would also say pray. I can't tell you, as Darlene, had lost her hair and was showing the signs of her treatment, I can't tell you how many people approached us in public, in a grocery store, on a street, somewhere in public, to say, excuse me, may I ask, are you a cancer patient? Obviously she was. And I can't tell you how many people said, would it be okay if I put you on my church's prayer list? Would it be okay if I pray for you? So my point is to stay connected to people. There is a tendency sometimes to withdraw. One becomes self-conscious, of appearance. And it's really important not to withdraw from family, from friends, from life, but to stay connected to people, to bring prayer into your life, to stay positive, and to be ready to know that it's going to be tough, and to be ready to face it, and to not surrender.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you gave such nuggets there. Absolutely. You said such a powerful bit of advice at the very end, and that is, if you see someone, don't just stare. If you must ask, are you dealing with cancer? Do add them to your church's prayer list. That is an amazing thing that you can do, because it's not only just that person, but it's their family as well. That's going through the ups and downs. It may not be the exact same thing. They're not going through the chemo, but they're going through the treatments with you or with that person.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, just to keep them encouraged. Because I know my son was in elementary school when I went through my bout, and it's frightening for kids to see their parent like that. So, thank you for that beautiful reminder. Add them to the prayer list. Don't just look or gawk or make a little comment, oh my, but genuinely care about your brother or sister in Christ that needs you during that time. Great bit of advice. Now, we have about 2 minutes left in this segment, but I do want to ask you about the medical care, kind of like the bedside manner, if you will, of what you received. Do you think that the medical team that assisted your wife and you, that they could have done anything differently, that there could have been some extra little touches to make it better? Do you think that what they did was perfectly okay? As far as like how they interacted with you and all of that, the way they explained treatment, that type of stuff.
Yes. Overall, we were both very pleased and happy with the medical care that Darlene received. Especially in the chemotherapy infusion center, all of the people that interacted with her were so caring and nurturing and supportive and sensitive. Her doctors were outstanding. No complaints there. The only real suggestion that I would have to the medical community is that there were times when we were receiving treatment from a number of different people, and there were times when I felt that those individuals were not communicating as much as we would have liked or we would have appreciated. And so I know it's difficult, but it's my suggestion would be when you're receiving different treatments from different people or different entities, different organizations, we felt that there could have been some better communication a couple of times through the process. But overall, we have no complaints. We feel very blessed. We felt very blessed at the care that she was given.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you for sharing that. You know, one of the questions that I remember one day I asked one of the nurses was, why did you become an oncology nurse? Why do you do this? Of all the fields of medicine, why this?
Yeah.
And that particular nurse, it was so interesting, and I thought it was a beautiful tribute to those in the medical field who do this with a sense of love and passion and commitment for the care of a patient. She said, I too am someone who dealt with breast cancer. And I remember my nurse was so loving and kind with me that
Yeah.
when my opportunity came around, I chose oncology to be able to give back. And I mean, that just hit me. I wasn't expecting her to say that. And I went, such a beautiful answer. What a wonderful way to give back. So you are right. Everything we do matters in this world. It really does. Well, Michael, it's time for us to go to break. Could you remind everyone again, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
Yes. So the title is Cancer Fight, My Wife's Faithful, Fearless Battle Against Breast Cancer. It's available on Amazon, and the publishing company is Ex Libris, so it's available at exlibris.com. I am on Facebook with information about the book.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. My guest today is Michael Coccari, and we're talking about his book, Cancer Fight. And he is speaking, sharing about his dearly departed wife, Darlene. And I just love how he is honoring who she was as a person by sharing with this book and by encouraging others that they too can make it through. And I love that. Michael, my next question for you is that so many times people are unable to see the silver lining, the light at the end of the tunnel, the shining star, whatever, cliche you want to use there. But they're unable to garner the goodness out of an experience that doesn't turn out the way that they thought it should. So my question to you is, have you been able to hold on to those thankful moments, even though your wife is no longer with us here physically?
My answer is yes. I think that I have. There are days when if I'm honest, I need to say I'm less confident in that answer, but most of the time my answer is yes. I had blissful years with my wife. I'm grateful for every day, every moment, all of it, no regrets. And cancer doesn't change that. I try to feel that sense of appreciation and gratefulness. There's a lot of discussion about heroes in our culture, in society. Where do we find them? I found my truest, most important hero in my wife. And to me, the relevance to other people is that we can all look around, I think, and say that. I think that we all have truly heroic people in our lives if we look closely enough and if we're willing to acknowledge their greatness, their strength, their courage, their power. and that's a wonderful thing. And so, yes, I am able to, I think, feel blessed. And I try to hold on to that sense of gratefulness. Life doesn't go on forever, and I think we have to have that sense that every day is a blessing, because we don't know how many days we have.
Mm-hmm.
And I hold on to the idea that, the body is temporal, it's transitory, but our spirit, our soul is eternal. And I try to hold on to that idea.
Mm-hmm. You gave another great piece of advice there. We need to learn to celebrate each day. Be grateful, be thankful. Look for those positive moments, because the negativity is going to come. Those things that are going to try to pull us down, they're definitely going to come. We don't have to go looking for those. They seem to just, whiz in and out of our life. But to hold on to those good moments, those moments that make you smile. I truly believe that if we can hold on tighter to those are the things that we keep when we become seniors. We can look back and say, boy, did I have a great life. And you're right, people do come and go, but at least we'll be able to say, I had some great days, months, years, hours even with that person. And that does help us to have such a wonderful and magnificent life. I love that. I love that. Now, being that we are Faith Talk Radio, I do ask this question from time to time, and that is, how do you believe your faith helped you get through such a trying time?
My wife had a very strong, unyielding faith in God and trust in God. I hope that I do as well. I think that I do. I try to nurture that, cultivate that, hold on to that. I think it made a huge difference, because in the darkest moments, I know that Darlene believed that her life in this world or on this world may have been coming to an end, but that wasn't going to be the end of her. There was something that she was moving on to, and there was great comfort in that. If we hadn't had that belief, what she went through would have been so much more difficult, so much darker. So at the end of the day, we were able to remember that, talk about that. She was able to look forward to that. She was able to say, okay, this is God's plan. It's not my plan. It wasn't her plan. It wasn't my plan, but it's God's plan. This is the way that it is going. We have to accept that and do the best that we can while we're here, and know that this is not the end of the story. This is not where the story ends. And I talk to my wife every day. I have conversations with her throughout the day, and I say to myself, one day we're going to be together again. I have absolute faith in that. I hold on to that. I cherish that. It helps me when I'm feeling low, when I'm really feeling that sense of loss. I know it sounds a little corny, but I will look up at the sky and I will just think, okay, I know that you're with God. And so that helps me. That helps me carry on. That helps me get through those low, dark moments.
Mm-hmm. As you were talking, it made me think about how we really do, especially when we have children, how you are able to take those beautiful lessons of someone that has passed on and still instill them in the children, and you see, if you will, kind of that person blossom in them and continue on. And as you were talking, it made me think about Princess Diana and Prince Harry and William. Now, not talking about the politics around all that happened and all of that, but just how when they do something from a humanitarian point of view, people will say, oh, Princess Diana would be so pleased. She would be so happy, that they're continuing to do this humanitarian work that she seemed to be so passionate about. And I think that it sounds like that's something that your wife is going to be able to live on in your kids, because you're going to share that with them. And when they start to blossom and bloom and do that, it's like, yep, others will be able to say that's their mom in them. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. One of the best things that we could do as parents, to be able to share that with our kids. I love it. Well, Michael, I have enjoyed my time with you. I know we kind of talked about a kind of heavy topic, but I think it very much needed to be talked about to give encouragement to someone who perhaps is going through the same thing, or they know someone whose family is going through this, and you said some words of encouragement to help them be a great member of that support team. So thank you for coming on and sharing about your book and letting us know about the awesome woman that your wife Darlene was, and how you're still carrying that flame that she has left behind. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
You are so welcome. If I could ask you one last time before I let you go, can you remind everyone what is the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
Yes, thank you. The title is Cancer Fight, My Wife's Faithful, Fearless Battle Against Breast Cancer. It's available on Amazon and the publisher's website, exlibris.com, and I am on Facebook with information about the book. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Thank you again for coming on and spending time with us here today. And listeners, thank you as well for spending time with us today. We hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you to be your best self. As always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember, you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.